Welcome back to the Rose Bros podcast. This episode, we are joined by Brett Colvin, co-founder and CEO of Goodlawyer, a Canadian legal tech startup that leverages technology to make it faster, easier, and more affordable for you to get legal help. Brett started Goodlawyer after working at one of Canada's largest law firms as a corporate lawyer, when he saw that most people can't afford the legal help they need. Typical firm rates were simply out of reach, so Brett teamed up with a developer, left the firm, and started Goodlawyer. So far, the company has raised $1 million in their pre-seed fundraise and are looking to raise an additional $3 million in their upcoming seed round as they expand the business. We sat down for a smooth cup of Rose Bros coffee and discussed the lifetime value of a customer, word-of-mouth marketing, network effects, why it's better than ever to raise venture capital funding, and why Alberta is a great place for entrepreneurs. Enjoy! This episode is also available on YouTube, so check out the Rose Bros channel. And if you enjoyed the conversation, subscribe to the channel. This podcast is sponsored by HeadCanadaRacing.com. Looking for high-performance ski gear this winter? In partnership with four-time Olympian Manny Osborne Parody, HeadCanadaRacing.com is offering the lowest prices possible through its online storefront by passing brick-and-mortar savings on to the customer. Check out HeadCanadaRacing.com for more info and get your high-performance ski gear for the upcoming season. Also, this week's podcast is brought to you by Rundle Eco Services. Looking for a way to recycle your frac pond and pit liners used in the energy industry? Rundle collects and processes liners using an environmentally friendly system, leaving a clean environmental footprint. The end use of these liners are shredded and processed into pellets that can be used and extruded into various forms of usable plastic products, including furniture, various building materials, and industrial packaging. Check out rundleco.com for more details on how you can recycle your industrial pond and pit liners today. Okay. Well, we're recording now.
Okay.
Brett Colvin.
You got it.
Hello.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, man.
You are the CEO and founder of Goodlawyer.
Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Goodlawyer. You got it.
What is Goodlawyer?
Great question. Goodlawyer is a marketplace that connects startup founders with our network of independent lawyers across Canada. Really, we offer the equivalent to a full service law firm solution, but we're a technology company. And much like the founders we help, our mission is to make legal services more accessible, to put a lawyer in every founder's pocket from inception, to IPO. And we do that by killing the billable hour, stripping away a ton of inefficiencies that exist in traditional law firms, and just facilitating a better, faster, and cheaper way for those startup founders to get the legal help they need to start and grow their business.
In simple terms, someone would log onto their computer, go to the Goodlawyer website, and connect with a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, at a very sort of high level, you could think of us as Airbnb for startup lawyers.
You're a lawyer by training.
I am. Yeah. Spent 4.5 years at a big national law firm and got to cut my teeth in that environment, but ultimately they weren't in the business of new ideas, and just became clear that creating the change that I wanted to see within the traditional firm context was never going to work. So that's really what led to the early days in the creation of Goodlawyer.
Judging by the name of Goodlawyer, you've had some experience with bad lawyers. How did the name come to be?
That's a good story. Literally bought the domains for Goodlawyer in first year law school. And that's almost a decade ago now. Had no idea what Goodlawyer would be one day, but the name itself came from an interaction I had with my old coffee guy. I went to U of A for business and law, and when I got back for law school, I bumped into him, went back to the old coffee shop, and he remembered who I was, and we were having this great conversation, catching up. And he's like this old Lebanese dude, Mo. He asked me, what am I doing back? And I told him I was in law school. And our friendly, jovial conversation went quickly to a more of a serious tone. And he looked at me and he said, "Be a good lawyer. Be a good lawyer." And something about the way he said it struck a chord in me. And I went back to contracts class and bus of domains and sat on them for 5 or 6 years before they became anything at all. But that's where the name came from.
So why start Goodlawyer then? Is it an idea while you were working at the firm, or you just recognized the need for that, removing the middleman sort of, or what was the...
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial seed was planted, like the name was First Year Law, the recognition that there was this huge access problem for just everybody in terms of trying to access professional legal services, how big that barrier was, how expensive and just unapproachable traditional firms were. That seed was planted also in law school. I think it was my second year doing a research paper on access to justice and alternative delivery models in other countries. And so that's where the seed started to kind of like take hold. And it wasn't, for another 5 or 6 years, having, finished law school, working in the big firm, that I really got to understand how much inefficiency, how much fat there was in the traditional model. When I left the big firm, I was billing out at close to $500 an hour. I was putting probably $75, $80 in my pocket out of that. So to me, there was this huge gap in terms of, I'm the one actually delivering the work. Sure, the firm's adding some value in terms of, some of the tools and resources that they can provide me to do my job, but it wasn't equatable to 85% of the value. And so that is where I really saw this opportunity to streamline the business of law, do a lot of the things for lawyers, in our case, solo lawyers primarily, that the big firm does. But by stripping away, the kind of partnership pyramid structure, stripping away the huge overhead, we're able to deliver the same, often better service at a fraction of the cost because we don't have this big law firm in the middle gobbling up most of the money.
In terms of running a business, Goodlawyer earns revenue from charging the clients a fee?
Yeah, so we don't charge lawyers anything. All of our prices are legal fee plus the Goodlawyer service fee, same as, if you're booking an Uber or you're ordering something on Skip or you're booking an Airbnb, we make all our money on that service fee. But if you combine the legal fee and the service fee on a Goodlawyer product, which is, the total price the client's paying, it's still coming in more often than not at a fraction of what, you can experience at a big firm.
You would tell the small business owner down the street to use Goodlawyer because it'll save you money at the end of the day.
I mean, it's so much more than that. I think, for us, if you just need to get incorporated, we can get you incorporated for $5.99, which, I would be surprised if there's any firm in the city that would do that. And so for those really early stage small business owners, absolutely, price is a huge consideration. And, we really want to move business owners away from pulling cheap or free templates off the internet because those don't really protect you, but also recognizing that the barrier to entry with a traditional firm and billable hours is too high for a lot of those early stage business owners to afford. Our focus in terms of sort of our ideal customer profile, that is the startup founder. And the nuance with the startup founder is they have complex legal needs, often from day one. And so our ability to combine greater affordability and, more importantly, transparency, price certainty, because you know how much you're going to pay before you agree to the service, is key. But at the same time, having, all of these specialized lawyers with niche areas of expertise, that are stage relevant to the startups, that the lawyer has experience working in that industry, whether it's, a med tech, a cannabis company, renewable energy company. Having a lawyer that has that experience in your industry, has worked with startups before, isn't just going to provide you with a cheaper solution over Goodlawyer, but it's actually going to be a hell of a lot better, most likely, than the general practitioner or the associate or maybe a student that you're dealing with if you're working with a firm.
And things are going pretty well for Goodlawyer.
Yeah, I mean, building a startup I never thought it was going to be easy. It's definitely, I feel like, the highest difficulty level in terms of, the video game of life that I could have chosen. But yeah, it's been a few years now and we've made some pretty incredible strides. We've helped, over 4,000 Canadians. Thousands of startup founders rely on us, for all of their legal needs. And so, yeah, it's still early days in the Goodlawyer journey, but we've definitely hit some really key milestones and, are able to support thousands of founders now across the country.
Sometimes tech companies, it's hard to earn money the first few years, but has it been difficult to generate profits?
I mean, we've been generating revenue for a really long time. By no means are we profitable at this stage, but by no means is that the sort of goal at this stage. We've been fortunate to have a lot of great investors along the way, been successful in raising capital. We're raising another round right now, but that really is, the early stage startup game. You're building something that has lasting upside, lasting value. And, when you're trying to build something that didn't exist before, which is absolutely what we're doing at Goodlawyer, it takes time. And, prioritizing growth over profitability in the early days is a key piece of the puzzle for, a lot of startups, but certainly marketplace startups like Goodlawyer, where you need to get it to a certain point where those network effects really start to kick in. And the thing that that makes me most optimistic about, that profitability journey for us is our customers keep coming back again and again and again, because we are their go-to legal provider for virtually all of the legal needs related to their business. So the lifetime value that we don't get to capture on the first day, the first month, even the first year, we start to recoup that cost of acquisition over time because we're delivering a great service and people keep coming back and telling their friends.
Interest rates are going up, making it life difficult for a lot of tech companies. Has that been the case with Goodlawyer?
I mean, there's a lot of hoo-ha in the media and everything about interest rates going up and that impact on venture capital and just capital more generally. It's something that I'm definitely acutely aware of. But if I'm being more frank, for early stage companies and for us, we're raising our seed round right now. We've done a friends and family and a pre-seed in the past. It's not having a huge impact on us. We don't carry virtually any debt, so it's not having a direct impact on that front. And frankly, there's more dry powder, as they say in the venture capital land, than ever before. So you have thousands of VCs, in North America and globally that have more money to deploy than they've ever had before. And so the interest rate hikes, the whole kind of sort of macro economy impact is definitely being felt by true growth stage startups that, are in their series B, C's, and D's and so on. Certainly we saw it in the capital markets, but in that early, from idea to kind of seed stage, we've been pretty sheltered. And there, like I said, there's so much venture capital on the sidelines waiting to be deployed. And we're starting to see even some of these growth investors who historically have been investing in that kind of series A and beyond space, starting to dip their toes into, the earlier stages where they can take more risk, but get better returns on the dollars they have. So the macro environment, I would say, is not having a huge impact on our fundraising strategy, but I do see a lot more deal flow coming down the pipe across the board in the new year than right at this moment.
In terms of raising capital, maybe it's proprietary. I don't know. How much are we talking? Is it millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions?
Yeah. So our seed round, we're looking to raise $3 million. In our pre-seed last year, we raised just over $1 million. And if I ever write a book, the title will be Too Frugal to Fail. And that has been kind of the MO from day one. Is startup is all about testing, learning, iterating, and very importantly, surviving. Time carries the most weight, and the longer you can stay in the game, the higher your probability of success, so long as you're learning, iterating, and improving your product, and your business generally. So for us, we've never been on like the razor blade of going under, because for me, my number one job is to keep the lights on as the CEO. And so when I'm looking to fundraise, I'm fundraising with a year of runway, because it gives me the cushion I need to have leverage in those negotiations, but also ensure that the whole team, we're up to I think 23, 24 people now are secure in their jobs. So, everybody takes a hit on their cash comp on the team, but they're also part of it. Equity compensation is used aggressively, as I think it should be in startups, to really align long-term interests. And, we're fortunate to have this unbelievable team committed to the mission and don't see the financial side of things slowing us down anytime soon.
Are the claws out in the VCs when they put the money into the company? Are they expecting 100% return in 2-3 years, or is it?
No, I mean, good VCs understand that this is a long game. Sometimes you might talk to a private equity guy or something that is dabbling in venture and kind of bringing that mentality into the financing conversation. But VCs that are experienced in startup land, they know that, most of their investments will likely go to zero, but that's not the point. The power law is the point, and that is we're going to make a bunch of bets, and then, 1, 2, if we're super lucky, 3 of these bets are going to turn into hugely outsized returns. And it seems like that approach is better understood in the States. There's definitely some Canadian VCs that, we've had chats with that totally get it, but there are a lot that don't. And I think Canada relative to the US, and certainly Calgary even relative to Toronto, is a pretty young startup ecosystem. And, there's not as many former founders or early investors who have had these uber wins.
Literally.
To kind of teach the ecosystem what the venture game is all about. But fortunately, we live in a very globalized world now, and getting on LinkedIn or shooting an email to a VC in the States or in the UK or wherever is very achievable, and something that, a founder anywhere, whether they're in Calgary, Red Deer, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're building something special, there are investors out there that will want a piece of it.
I remember hearing the story of Toby from Shopify riding his bike around Sand Hill, sleeping in a hostel.
Yeah, I believe it.
It was a pretty cool story. And he didn't even really necessarily want the money or need it. But it was an example of someone kind of coming out of nowhere in the tech world and raising money and succeeding.
Oh yeah. I mean, Shopify is despite getting beat up in the public markets recently, one of the best companies that Canada has ever produced. And I would love to meet Toby one day. Definitely would put him in that kind of idol category, because what he's done with Shopify is truly remarkable. We'd love to do, something of a similar magnitude one day with Goodlawyer.
Speaking of VCs, I was listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast the other day on the 2 questions every startup founder should ask themselves. And number 1 is, how do you know when you've achieved product market fit? And number 2 is, how do you reach product market fit?
Yeah, the old product market fit questions.
Those are from Andy Ratcliffe from Benchmark Capital.
And people will debate this night and day. My feeling on it, I don't know if I'm stealing this from Andreessen or something, but when the product is just getting pulled out of you, and word of mouth is another great indication of product market fit. If you have customers that are telling their friends and they're telling their friends about your product, and you're growing organically like that, certainly for, in our case, a marketplace product that is B2B, but our Bs are often small Bs. And so, for us, our number 1 channel for growth by a country mile is referrals, customer referrals. And I think that is a reflection of, almost like an indicia of product market fit, not maybe determinative. And I'm not even fully convinced that product market fit is a fixed moment. It's more of a continuum, I feel like. But I do think that word of mouth, having those raving fans is a great indication. And then obviously, I think a key part of product market fit eventually, or maybe it's business market fit, is having a business model on the back of that product that, can provide returns over the long haul.
A Microsoft stage where they genuinely make money, profiting year after year.
Yeah. And again, Uber, I don't even know if we would call them profitable, but they were cash flow positive for the first time a month or two ago in their entire history. Yeah. And I mean, they're an extreme example, and, better funded than almost any company in history. Yeah. But it took them, I don't know when Uber was started and they were doing black cabs, but it's got to be at least a decade ago. So it's not necessarily about being profitable today, although, that net revenue line, that burn multiple, just like the actual fundamentals of getting closer to profitability are more important in the VC world now than since I started Goodlawyer. It's less just about what's your total gross top line, where you can pile marketing dollars in to grow that. What is your net revenue retention? What do your unit economics actually look like? What is a reasonable estimate of the LTV based on a variety of factors? So profitability is more important than ever for startups and VCs, I would say. That being said, no startup is expected to be profitable on day one. And so long as you have a well-articulated and reasoned kind of story on how you get there, I think you'll be still a very attractive, option for venture capitalists around the world.
It seems like a lot of the best entrepreneurs and company founders had skin in the game. Have you had to put much money into the company, or how do you align yourself with the success of the company?
Yeah. I mean, I think building a startup, the importance of alignment between, founders, teammates, investors, in our case, lawyers on the platform, alignment across the board is insanely important, like the most important, I think, and hard to shape. Again, one of the benefits of, building Goodlawyer and being a practicing lawyer is we were able to use all of the legal tools kind of in the toolbox to create that alignment. And like I said, working a Goodlawyer, you're probably making less cash than you can make elsewhere, but you're also getting equity in the company. And the only way that equity in the company is valuable to you at some point down the line is if we all win together. For me personally, I feel like it's almost hard to detach Brett Colvin from Goodlawyer. Like they're kind of one and the same. And, for me, I put everything I have effectively financially and, time-wise into this company. Didn't take a salary for the first, call it 2.5 years, living in Grant's basement for a little while, getting this thing off the ground. My house subsequent to that was, the Goodlawyer HQ for over a year before we moved to this great space. But that's one thing that, I think everybody on our cap table, all of our investors and, everybody on the team knows fully, which is that I am incredibly aligned with the Goodlawyer mission. Every egg I have is in this basket, and I will go down swinging, and hopefully it never comes to that.
You aren't technical by training, you're a lawyer, so you understand the legal aspect of it all and the need you're trying to fill. But has it been difficult building a tech company not being technical?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably next to impossible if you don't bring on someone that gets it early. And, I think one of the hardest thing for non-technical early stage founders to do is find that CTO, find that technical expert to build this business with you. And fortunately for me, I met that guy on almost day one of the business, and Parker, our CTO, has been here all along. And having a guy like that who can, not only code and who built single-handedly the first kind of version of Goodlawyer back in the day is also a leader and has, started to build out his team, his team of developers that work closely with Parker. And then alongside Tom, our chief product officer, one of my other co-founders, they basically handle product. I've always had a decent sense for pricing, which is a key dynamic of, Goodlawyer and the innovations that we're bringing. Most industries, upfront pricing is standard, but in law it is very much not. So I'm definitely able to add a lot of that subject matter expertise, and in particular kind of pricing and just a comfortability with estimating things. But when it comes to anything truly platform related, I'm leaning on guys on the team, most notably Parker and Tom.
This may be a little in the weeds, but what tech stack did you decide on? Which languages did you write the program in?
I mean, so at the core, we use React. The stack, the acronym that I've been told, it MERN. We got like MongoDB, Node, JS, React, and I always forget the E. But I think that's all, also like a reflection of I don't need to know those things. Occasionally in a investor meeting or something, I'll get asked, potentially take a swing at answering the question if I think I know the answer. But ultimately, building a startup, there's so many dimensions. I think as a founder, you need to really come to grips with what dimensions are you good at and where do you need to find people. And, that's how we built this company is we found fantastic people. And in the earliest days, that started with finding the technical co-founder.
Do you remember the day you raised your first money?
Vividly. It was a guy I had known for a long time, not well, but I was close with his son, and they ended up coming in together. We'd actually, me and Paul, the son, ran a painting franchise together right before I went to law school. Made a ton of money that summer, had an amazing time, built a big team. It was great. And we had this experience building a business together. I also grew up playing soccer against him frequently. It was probably, 6 months into me focusing on Goodlawyer kind of full time, maybe even a little bit less than that. But I've been kind of scheming it, at least in my brain, for a while. And Paul came by one day and said that him and his dad were interested in getting involved. And I met Danny Ritchie. They run an incredibly successful renovation business in town, Ultimate Renovations. And I'll never forget meeting Danny and Paul at Joey's on McLeod and sharing a bottle of wine. I was trying to show him our MVP and the pitch deck and everything. And I could tell I was boring him. This isn't really his arena, but he'd known me for a really long time, had a ton of belief in me. I was expecting from everyone that I had spoken with prior that this was going to be, a multi-meeting kind of process, warm things up, because as much as I'd known Danny for a long time, I didn't know him that well. But he had a pretty good read on me. We came out of that dinner with a deal in hand, which kind of pisses founders off a lot of the time when they hear that, because it's often not that straightforward. And I kind of jokingly refer to Paul and Danny as the godfathers of Goodlawyer, because they really did facilitate me taking the leap full time, leaving the firm and the 6-figure salary to really take a run at this thing that I thought could be huge one day. And as much as they don't bring a ton of subject matter expertise to law or technology, they've been a tremendous support system for myself and folks on the team right from day one. So I think finding those folks that believe in you as the founder and tapping your network first when you're thinking about raising capital is the name of the game. I think far too many founders, maybe they run through an accelerator, they build a little pitch deck, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to go raise millions from VCs. I mean, maybe, and maybe more likely if you're hanging out in the valley, but that's not how I see most companies start, from ground zero. I see most successful companies leaning on their folks they know, folks they worked with, a ton of people in our early round I used to work with at the firm or even before the firm, kind of starting to build your reputation just as like a high performing, reliable person, and then leveraging that reputation when you want to try to build something special, something big, is, certainly in Calgary, Alberta, and I would say more generally in Canada, that's where it should start.
Garrett Cam's from Calgary.
I know. Yeah. If he's listening to this podcast, I'd love to meet you.
Maybe he'll write a check for you.
He's actually on my very short list of guys that I want to reach out to. Most of the VC conversations we're having these days are inbound interest. one of the things that we've done really well at Goodlawyer is build the brand, and a lot of folks across the country have heard of Goodlawyer, and that leads to a lot of inbound interest. So we haven't really done the VC roadshow apart from having those inbound conversations, because at a minimum, they've been fantastic practice for the conversations to come. But really, this round right now was kicked off because lawyers on the platform saw our article in Beta Kit last year and they wanted to invest. So leveraging the network, finding, if you're building a construction tech company and you can get some of your early customers, maybe it's a large construction company, to invest in you, it aligns those interests. You have people that, can help you develop and build a better product, and, they're bought into the success of your company. So
use it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's hard to predict the future and look ahead, especially in a tech startup, but the next couple of years, what's your goals to start generating profit or just grow users as big as possible?
I mean, again, I could change the look of the team and jack up prices and we could be profitable tomorrow. Like, that is within the wheelhouse. Like, we could do that, but we're not going to do that because we still, as much as, that net revenue line is more important than ever relative to that kind of gross revenue line that VCs have been looking at primarily in this kind of like Uber, WeWork kind of age, but we're coming out of that. And so the net rev line is more important than ever. And we're taking that very seriously, but ultimately we're still very, very much in growth mode. And, we're raising this seed round right now to replicate what we've done in Calgary in terms of the percentage of startups and founders that we're helping in Toronto and across the rest of the country. And then the next step for us, following this seed and, overall, I wouldn't even say expansion across Canada, because we already are servicing founders in, every province in the country. Increasing our Canadian market share is the priority for the seed. And then next up will be our Series A that we anticipate raising in 2024. And the objective of the Series A is going to be to take this amazing business that we've built and tweaked and learned and iterated and, I wouldn't say perfected, because I don't think it will ever find perfection, but that we've really optimized here in Canada and look to start taking it into new jurisdictions around the world, because that is, from day one been the objective of Goodlawyer, is to build a scalable solution that we can take everywhere. And, Canada has been this amazing petri dish for us to test, learn, iterate, and build something that people love.
If you were to explain that business model to your grandma, the idea is that you grow as big as you possibly can, get as many people using the product as you possibly can, and then eventually tweak the model a little bit so that you're making money at the end of the day. Would that be a simple way to explain it?
I mean, the biggest cost, like the kind of main cost centers for an early stage startup are obviously product development. But after putting aside the R&D and the product development for a second, we're talking about cost of acquisition. How much does it cost you to acquire a customer? And if you make more from a customer than it costs you, and we call that side of the equation the LTV, the lifetime value, you need LTV to be greater than CAC, and hopefully a multiple of that. And so from my perspective, really the key to our success is the net revenue retention. So it's, the fact that our customer, that the first job they get, the first job they do over Goodlawyer, it's a contract review, it's a share, whatever it is, we make a little bit of money on that first one. And so, if it cost us $500 to acquire a customer and we make $200 off that first transaction, we're still in the hole for $300. But that next transaction that they buy didn't cost us anything to acquire because we already have them. And so maybe we make another $200 on that one. And by the third transaction, now we're profitable. Now we're making $600 when it costs us $500 to get that customer. And so really the core belief from, around Goodlawyer is law is sticky. once you have found someone that you trust, or, in this case, a company that you trust to deliver on that legal need that you have as a business owner, those legal needs keep recurring year over year over year. Businesses have more legal needs, like I'm sure you're going to when you grow yours. And really for us, it's just staying alive long enough that we can prove out that LTV. And, we're moving up market with our fractional general counsel product, which kind of changes the dynamic from being solely marketing driven, which has been where we're at historically, to a bit more sales oriented, because we have these larger mandates intended for, scale ups and larger enterprises than the many of the early stage products we have in the marketplace. But if I was going to explain this to my grandma, I would say, if we can get them to come back 3 times, we'll be profitable. And so the key is, can we get them to keep coming back?
Is it hard finding good lawyers?
Yes and no. I think, for us, we're looking for a pretty special breed of lawyer in terms of,
not everyone goes to Harvard.
Yeah. And like, you don't need to be a good lawyer. I went to U of A, and I think that plenty of damn good lawyers coming out of, pretty much every law school in Canada. I wouldn't say the same about the US. There's a lot more variance in the US in terms of caliber, but certainly in Canada, I think if you're coming out with a law degree from any of the schools in Canada, that's a good starting point. But the uniqueness about the lawyers that we look for are, do you have an interest in startups? Do you feel comfortable breaking the mold and not selling billable hours, and transitioning your practice from input based, how much time did I put into a file, and that's going to be the cost of it, to more value oriented? How much is this product worth to a client, and getting in the mold of that, value based billing. So finding that perfect fit can sometimes be challenging, but as we see with a lot of marketplaces, when you get over a certain kind of hump, the network effects kick in. And what that means for us is, good lawyers that have been with us talk to their friends, talk to their law school buddies, tell them about this great experience they're having, same as the founders that we work with. Mm-hmm. And that word of mouth on both the founder and the lawyer side is our primary driver of growth. If we need to go find a couple experts in a field because we're seeing a ton of demand, like sometimes we'll go hunting for them, and then they'll go through our pretty extensive vetting process before they get on the platform. But fundamentally, good founders are referring good founders, and in the exact same way, good lawyers that have been working with us and having a great experience are telling their friends, and we're bringing on more good lawyers. In Ontario, for instance, where there's like a density of lawyers unlike anywhere else in Canada, because there's so many law schools, we've got a wait list of lawyers that want to be on the platform. And again, that's just a reflection of, we're building something that people want, and that's on both the founder and the lawyer side.
Do you think coming from Calgary kind of forces you to create a decent company, in the sense that you don't have the resources that you would have down south in Silicon Valley or Toronto or Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, if I was born and raised in San Fran instead of Calgary, I don't know if the title of my book would be Too Frugal to Fail.
But that's like Shopify coming from Ottawa.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, there's big differences between the Valley, the rest of the US versus Canada versus Calgary. Like, there's kind of a lot of differences between all those different sort of areas. I think Calgary and, Alberta more generally has always had that entrepreneurial edge in a way that a lot of places in Canada don't, or at least not to the same extent. I think Calgary is possibly the most entrepreneurial city in our country.
That's true.
A per capita basis. And
that is definitely true.
When I started Goodlawyer, a little over 3 years ago, I always assumed that I would have to leave Calgary. I thought that I would have to, eventually pick it up and move it to the Valley, or move it at least to Toronto or something. But the way that the direction the city's been going over the last few years has been incredibly exciting for a startup founder like me. And there is more interest. Again, it's still like early days for our city in terms of being a startup and a tech hub, but we're moving in the right direction. And I've had opportunities that I don't think I would have in other cities to, talk to the mayor, talk to the minister, just get into rooms that if I was in Toronto or the Valley, I'm not getting into, because in those markets, we're more of a spec. Whereas in this new market, we're able to have a bit more of an influence, or certainly an impact on, the future trajectory of our city. And, being a Calgary guy, born and raised in this is my city, and, getting to play a small part in transitioning this city from being just solely oil and gas centric, which I still think will play an important role in our city for, probably the decades to come, but really taking this opportunity where, we have a provincial surplus. Like, no other province is talking about surpluses.
Big surplus.
Yeah. And like the opportunity we have as a city and a province to redeploy that into what I think is so obviously the future in terms of where the biggest companies will be. It's going to be in technology. It's going to be, the biggest companies in the world. If you think about them, top 10, I would suspect 8 or 9 of them were startups at one point in time, like classic startups. Just how the attitudes of people in Calgary in particular are shifting in that direction makes me really bullish for, what the future holds for our city. And if Goodlawyer can play an important role in that, then yeah, it'd be something I'd be really proud of one day.
I was talking about this with a guy on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and the idea that Alberta could be like Texas, where they have energy, tech, SpaceX, Tesla, everything, farming.
100%.
And that's what Alberta could be.
Yeah. I mean, look at Austin.
Yeah. Like everything. They have everything. They have a coastline.
Yeah.
And
Austin is, one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing tech hub in the US. Huge companies, huge players, and a ton of incredible startups are coming out of there more, every day. And I think it provides a fantastic example for, the powers that be, the decision makers in our city, in our province, to look at and ask themselves, how do we do that? Yeah. Because I do see Calgary having some very cool differentiating factors, not least of which being this unbelievable downtown that sits 30+% empty. Last time I heard the stat on it. Like, we have this incredible downtown. What if we could fill it with startups?
Yeah. Just open it up for business.
We submitted the Good Building project proposal to the city, or if it hasn't gone out the door yet, it will be going out soon. It has always seemed to be a willingness to try to recruit the Amazons of the world. I'm pretty sure at one point there were Calgary ads in Seattle. And I look at that and I'm just thinking to myself, why can't we deploy a similar strategy to attract startups, both from the suburbs, from around the province, around the country, but around the world? And why can't we be a magnet for these companies to come to our city, come to our downtown? And, one thing that I've always been very passionate about, or a believer in, is network density. And what makes the Valley special is that there is a density of people building the future, investing in the future. And, I think Calgary has that sort of infrastructure downtown that is currently unused in a way that I don't know if there's another city in North America with this much top class infrastructure and ability to literally put a bunch of founders, technologists into a dense space. So, there can be collisions and ideas and learnings occurring in an expedited fashion. And that's what the Good Building is all about. Stay tuned on that one.
Like Florence in the 16th century.
Yeah, exactly. And again, what does Calgary have that other cities don't? We've got one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to.
Yeah, don't tell everyone.
we've got beautiful mountains and hiking and all these things around. It gets cold, and that is like a major downside.
You should learn to ski
for a lot of folks. Yeah, but we also have truly this like world-class downtown that sits hilariously empty right now. And I just think that there's an opportunity to leverage that advantage and attract startups in, the earlier days where, they can really grow and mature in your city. And to me, that is how we're going to build a better and more exciting future for Calgary than trying to recruit, Amazon's next warehouse.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that was a great conversation.
Pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you are listening to this and you want to learn more about Goodlawyer, check us out at goodlawyer.ca.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you like what you heard, check out rosebros.ca, where we will have upcoming shows. Until next time, happy coffee drinking.